by the painter Rembrandt. It's called The Return of the Prodigal Son. It's a just sort of office-sized version. Take a look at it and pass it to others. Thanks for a fantastic kids talk, Emily, did she already leave? Thank you, Emily. That was great. I'll probably never put my tongue on anything cold either. Met metal after that one. I saw the movie too. In his book, The Return of the Prodigal Son, and you'll see this when you see the image, Omri Nouwen, who's a theological and spiritual writer and kind of a spiritual master of our generation, makes a profound point about one of the most well-known stories in all of the Bible. His analysis is based on that Rembrandt painting that you're going to see in just a moment if you haven't already, and what characters we identify with when we read the story, and what we're called to be as church. A couple of weeks ago, we heard the parable of the Good Samaritan, one of the best known stories in the Bible. The parable of the prodigal or wasteful son, which is what prodigal means, sometimes also called the parable of the lost son, would have to be a close second. If people know stories in the Bible at all, this is likely one they've heard. Martin Luther called it the gospel within the gospels, perhaps the best summary of the good news of God's love for us in Jesus Christ, within the 4 written gospels. And this powerful parable tells the all too familiar story of one who lost his way and yet managed to find his way back in humility to experience the mercy of his Father. As you heard in the gospel reading, the son asks for his inheritance to go and squander on dissolute living. This is the money that he would get when his father dies. He wanted it before his father was dead. Right? Now you only imagine the agony of the father giving money to his son to spend in the least wise way possible. Those parents in the room know exactly how much we worry about the decisions our children make and how far we're willing to go to prevent them from making bad choices. It almost feels like an epidemic in our culture today. Whatever you do, don't make a bad choice. Parents know the hearts of their children, and I'm quite sure the father would have known, and it's a parable, but would have known exactly how the son would spend the money when he came to him. If you knew your child was going to spend your money on idiotic things, making mistakes, etc., would you give it to him? Of course not. Of course you would. How foolish of the father to give the money to the son. In modern psychological terms, we'd say he's enabling sick and prodigal behavior, right? Isn't that what we'd say today? Wasteful behavior. But he's actually doing something much worse than that. Not only does he appear to be quite foolish, he actually dishonors and soils the family name, his own name and the reputation of his family in the community by doing this, by allowing this to happen. And in an honor culture in which Jesus lived, that was deadly. The son wasn't just being foolish and unwise in asking for the money. He would receive the money that he would receive when his father was dead. He was actually rejecting the father. He was saying to the father, "You are dead to me. I don't care about you. I only want your money. And I care about my newfound freedom and me and all that I can get from it. And you cannot stop me." That's what the son is saying to the father. How true. And yet I can't help thinking and feeling what that must have been like for the father. Again, a parable, but we human beings love to talk about our freedom, and the story carries much wisdom in it, even for us today. Are we free to step over lines of morality and decency? Of course. They're lines, they're not walls. Can we get away with it? Well, that's another question. This story shows us that there are consequences to our actions. Freedom is a double-edged sword. God will grant it, but what will we do with it? That is the test of Christian freedom. In a sense, God allows us to do as we please, but God cannot save us from the consequences of our actions, at least not in this life. Such is the sting of the law. Moral boundaries are just that, boundaries. They can easily be overstepped, and they are constantly. The prodigal son is a cautionary tale about overstepping your boundaries in foolish freedom and in not recognizing what is truly valuable in life. The son was blind to the relationship he had with his father. He didn't realize the damage he was doing to it in making this ridiculous request. The wasteful son, feeding unclean animals, pigs, wallowing in filth, and longing to eat some of the slop, has, to use a modern term again, hit rock bottom, right? He can't go down from here, really. He can only go up. He has no right to ask his father for anything, let alone forgiveness and mercy and reconciliation. But what does it hurt to try, right? Things can't get any worse for him. I always picture the father waiting impatiently for the return of the prodigal son, pacing around outside, hoping and anticipating that moment when he returns. You can only imagine the tension that must build for both sides, for father and son alike. What will he look like? Will he be beyond redemption? Will he actually be sorry? Or is he just coming to ask for more? And how much can I give? Those are the questions I know I would be fretting about if I were anxiously awaiting a return from a lost child. Now the son must be asking himself, as we sort of heard, like practiced out in the text, will he even accept me? Or will he shun me? Or kill me? Which he would have had the right to do. Do I have any hope of getting into his good graces again? I have already said, you are dead to me. Will he say the same in return? And you can kind of imagine him practicing his speech on the long, dusty road home. There is another layer to this text. Recall that the two short parables and this parable are a response to criticism of Jesus for hanging out with sinners and tax collectors and eating with them, which was a sign of intimate friendship in the ancient world. He tells the two shorter parables of finding a lost sheep and a lost coin, and then this one. And it's a way of kind of framing for his audience how to think about and treat those people who have made unwise choices in their lives. Those who have broken God's law, according to the Pharisees' wisdom, and deceived their fellow Jews certainly did not deserve respect or dignity. They made their bed, now they had to lie in it. But Jesus tells a different story. That sense of pity or moral opprobrium or righteous indignation, of course, exists in our society every bit as much today as it did in Jesus. And yet, as many of us know, when our lives turn into a mess, and we've all struggled with crises or problems in our lives, that we have to be honest about that. And when that happens, there's almost always more than meets the eye. There are things you don't know that may be happening behind closed doors in people's lives that are causing them to act out in ways that are unpleasant or wrong. At a minimum, this parable should give us sensitivity to that. People's lives are difficult, and we should not rush to judgment. But Jesus actually wants to say something even more offensive than that, not just that we're insensitive. And that's the point that Nouwen makes in this book. In Rembrandt's painting, as you've seen, some of you and you will see, there's a ragged young man in tatters, kneeling at the bosom of an older man, a father figure, who's wrapped his arms around the boy in compassion and love and concern for his sorry, pitiful state. And that's that dramatic moment of acceptance, when the father's compassion overwhelms any sense of honor or law or judgment or discipline that he would have had to give his son. He only cares about the son and the compassion and love and the grace that he feels for him. No questions asked, no speeches or justifications needed, just compassion. That's the key word in this text. Now, in the story, he probably also ran to the son, as it indicates, to meet him at the edge of town, because he not only soiled his own family, his own reputation in the community, he he soiled the very reputation of the community itself. He dishonored that whole village, and they would have had the opportunity to do some really unpleasant things to the son. But the father meets him and embraces him, thereby kind of protects him, keeps him safe. Then there's the older brother, who sees what's going on and cannot believe his eyes. Are you kidding me? That guy? You know what I'm talking about, right? This is the good boy that did everything that his father asked, followed all the rules, drew the lines, did everything right. And let's be honest, we can relate to him, can't we? Imagine if you had a loser brother or sister or relative show up at your house, and your parents fall all over themselves for this person without any moral accountability, any sense of what they did to damage and hurt the family for so many years. I mean, we'd be incensed about that too, right? This is not okay. Of all the people you're going to kill the fatted calf for, throw a party for, that guy? Really? That's what's going on with the elder brother, right? In some ways, this parable could be called not the parable of the prodigal son, but the parable of the jealous older brother. The prodigal son clearly has messed up. I mean, that's obvious. That's what the story's all about. But the elder brother's got a problem too. And we like it when God gives us grace and forgiveness. We feel that sense of warmth and acceptance and so forth. But we're not always so sure about those other people. And that's the sin of the elder brother, is limiting God's grace, quantifying God's grace, saying there may be enough for me, but there isn't enough for him. And he certainly doesn't deserve it. Standing in righteous indignation and moral judgment of his brother. In Rembrandt's painting, his father embracing the son, and I don't know if you saw in the upper left-hand corner, you can barely even make it out. There's the visage, the face of someone seething, scandalized at what's happened. Nauman's point is that each one of us, in our Christian faith and sort of Christian awareness, is the prodigal son. Maybe that's obvious. We have strayed from God's way. We say this in our confession. We are in bondage to sin and cannot free ourselves. We're lost without God's grace. We can only come home to the Father and be received in warmth and love and mercy. But now it says, too, this is a realization for him in his spiritual life. We're also the jealous older brother. We want God's grace for ourselves, but not for other people. We want to limit God's love, and we can't stand it when other people get it too. That's what he takes from the story. So each of the sons is foolish, one for being, or is sinful, one for being foolish, and the other for being stingy. And the older brother's concern is just not true. All that I have is yours. Don't you see that? But we had to celebrate. For this brother of yours that was lost has been found. He was dead, and he's alive again. That's what the celebration is about. That's the point Jesus is trying to make to those critics that are listening to him. And that's the point that we need to hear as children of grace. Not necessarily liking what others get. We're all in the same boat. However, and this is now its final point, we are the prodigal son. We're all the jealous older brother. And we can feel them at war within us sometimes, right? But our calling as Christians in the world is to become the loving arms of the Father, embracing a world that is lost and hurting, to show unconditional love and mercy to people who've made poor choices in their lives. That's the challenge. Not to stand in judgment, but to live in love. Nauman's point comes out of a sense of the fear of God that he experienced, in addition to God's grace, that he felt his whole life, which had paralyzed him from showing true compassion. And he writes this, summarizing what I've just told you. As long as the Father evokes fear, he remains an outsider and cannot dwell within me. But Rembrandt, who showed me the Father in utmost vulnerability, made me come to the awareness that my final vocation is indeed to become like the Father and to live out his divine compassion in my daily life. Though I am both the younger son and the elder son, I am not to remain them, but to become the father. No father or mother ever became father or mother without having been son or daughter, but every son and daughter had to choose consciously to step beyond their childhood and become father and mother for others. It is a hard and lonely step to take, especially in a period of history in which parenthood is so hard to live well. But it is a step that is essential for the fulfillment of the spiritual journey. And yes, that means you and me. We are called to do this, to be the body of Christ for the sake of the world, even though we are sinful and imperfect beings who fall short of God's grace every day. That does not relieve us the call and the obligation to extend God's unconditional, prodigal, wasteful, and at times offensive love to the world. And so the story comes full circle. The prodigal son, who's wasteful with resources and in choices, meets the prodigal father, who's wasteful in love and compassion and mercy. And this is a love, my friends, that is realized in the world by you